there's so many different breathing techniques, but one that's really good, it's called box breathing. And so so you're breathing in for 4 seconds, breathe in, and then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds and hold it for 4 seconds. And if you can't do 4 seconds, of course you can do less than that, but it's the box. So 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. And if you do that for about 5 cycles, then that's going to just significantly reduce your stress.
Hey guys, welcome back to Brewed with Hustle, episode number 11. My name is Jake. I'm your host. We have a great guest today, Shanna, a friend of mine from high school who's doing a lot of wonderful things now. Casey's back there in the back, making sure everything's going good. Casey, how are you, man?
That's exactly how I am.
that's always a good start.
Well, we do these things, and it's just the greatness of owning somebody that's a brewer.
There you go.
And you never seem to disappoint. You always bring me something good. Tonight I've got Light Horse IPA, which this is a new one that's going to come out, right? Yep. Or it's actually it's not a new one, but it's a revision of an older one, right? Yeah.
So I'm having the same thing. So we released this last summer. Actually, it's exactly a year ago. And it's similar to Fancy Dance. So I know a lot of people that are listening have had Fancy Dance. So this is a New England IPA. It's called a session IPA because it's just over 5% alcohol. So a session beers are lower alcohol, so you can enjoy a few of them without getting a little too tipsy to.
We'll make it a session, right? Make it a session.
Casey said, screw that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that smell?
That's the hops. So the hops are like citrus, a lot of like tropical fruit, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's just, almost like orange juice or grapefruit juice. So, man, this time we kind of made some changes this year to it. Re-released it. It's a little bit lighter, more of that aroma and tropical fruit. So, I don't know, Casey, how you liking it?
Well, it's hard to beat your Fancy Dance, but buddy, this one's definitely a running.
It's right there with it.
It's right, man. I don't know which one I like better, to be honest. If I had to say between the two, I couldn't do it right now.
I said the same thing the other day, and Fancy Dance is like my favorite child.
Oh yeah,
it's building our business for
definitely.
us. But yeah.
So, I would be hard pressed to make a decision either way on that.
Yeah. Okay, man. So we're gonna do something a little different this week, Casey.
All right, Audible. I like it.
So I actually we'll get into reintroduce Shanna here in a little bit, but I've been listening to her podcast, and I want to kind of take something from what she does. Like, she really tries to express herself and help people with things that are on her mind at that point in time, And so I want to start doing the same thing. So what we'll do is we're gonna, I'm gonna just kind of share what's on my mind a little bit. With each of these episodes, and like something hit me the other day. I can't remember, I was having a conversation with somebody, and we talked about what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give your younger self?
Yes.
And so, we used to do this thing at our old high school where we would go back and talk to these kids.
Yes.
And I used to spend like days before that trying to figure out, okay, what would what kind of advice would I have liked to have heard? And I've landed on something the other day, is I didn't want any advice. So I can't tell you what advice I would have wanted to hear, but I can tell you what I wish I knew when I was that young, is that everything that happens in my life, what I've learned is everything that's happened in my life that is not ideal or didn't go to plan, or it was, it wasn't the best result, was my fault. It was all my fault. Like, in some form or fashion, it goes back to a decision I made. And I watch the news and I see what's going on Facebook and stuff like that, and everybody's looking for somebody to blame for something.
Right.
And there's almost no accountability anymore.
Right.
So to me, I just think I want people to think about, you know, when I wake up in the morning and it's raining outside, I think that's my fault. You know, like I'm completely accountable for every single thing that goes on in my day. And that's just something I want to get out there. I think like if we think that way more often, I think of things in this world are going to get a lot better, a lot quicker.
Right.
So, but anyways, all right, Casey, we got Shanna. You said you haven't seen her in a long time.
I don't even know the last time I've seen
Yeah,
her. We all did go to high school together, and I believe. What were you?
We did.
Were you a year or 2 years younger than us?
So I graduated in 99.
Okay,
99.
we were 97.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which your brother was a couple of years older
Right.
than me and Jake.
Yes, he
Yeah.
graduated in 94, 95.
Right.
94.
I love playing guitar with that guy whenever I get the
Yeah.
chance. It's so awesome.
He's awesome.
Yeah, we have Sean at the brewery quite often playing in the tap rooms,
Right.
and he's a fan favorite.
I say playing guitar with him, honestly, man, that guy, I could hang out with him in any situation, and he's just about as cool and as
Yeah.
laid back as they come. I really like that guy.
Yeah. All right, man. So Shanna is a new entrepreneur,
Woo!
like brand new.
Brand spanking new.
She has created Be Ultra Living. So that's your business and your podcast name, right?
Yeah, the podcast is Be Ultra Podcast.
Okay. So she has a podcast. She's started a brand new business. I listened to a few episodes of your podcast in the past week or two, and she's really sharing her journey and story during all of this. And so, I mean, I think we'll just go right into it. Why don't you tell us about it? Tell us what you've been doing and kind of what led you to creating this business and what the business is all about.
Okay. So I started the podcast about a little over a year ago. And the reason I started the podcast actually was I had just wanted to try to figure out some kind of way to get all the different strategies and techniques that I was teaching the people that I was working with, because I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed social worker, and I have been working prior to this week. I was working at the VA, and I'd worked there for 8 years. And I wanted to just use my skills to just put it out there to the world, to give other people strategies on ways that they can just make better decisions for themselves, improve their life, just like really quick, easy strategies.
Yep.
Not that I'm saying that there's a quick fix, because there's not.
Yep.
But there are strategies that you can implement into your life every day that will make a huge difference if you do it. You have to be willing to take those steps and and take the challenges. But the reason I wanted to do that is I knew that I wanted to do something different. I just wasn't quite sure how to do it or what exactly to do. So that was kind of the first step in the process of just trying to step into a new role. Because I had been, like I said, I'd been working at the VA for almost 8 years. And it was, there was so many times working there that the system just was bogging me down, just making it really difficult.
Yep.
There's lots of red tape.
Yeah.
There's lots of different barriers that don't really need to be there. And I understand, like, it's a huge system, and there's lots of programs. But I was getting kind of frustrated with just the day-to-day stress of doing the job, of creating so many barriers that I couldn't do what I needed to do with my veterans. And not just me, there's many people that have to deal with those kinds of
That's government,
stressors.
right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, and like we're in this time where a lot of people think we need more government to take more control of our lives.
Right.
And you're an example of how that just doesn't work.
It doesn't. I mean, the one thing that I found is that, like I said, there's lots of good programs, lots of good help and good things that people can get. However, you almost need a social worker to navigate the system for you so that you can access all those different things. And when you're a person that's dealing with PTSD or dealing with depression or addiction, I mean, how are you going to navigate that kind of system? So I started, I was working with a guy that I know from Colorado. I joined this Becoming Ultra team. It's a team of people who want to become ultra runners. And so I joined that team and started talking to him about maybe contributing to his podcast, which is where it all started. And so he gave me that platform. That's where I started. And then we worked together on me just kind of going off on my own. Because it's a running podcast, and most of what I'm doing is like mental fitness or trying to mental changing your mentality and stuff like that. So it just made sense to start kind of moving in my own direction. So he's been helping me with all of that.
So you're working for the government. You're in the middle of all this red tape, and then you just so the podcast came first, and then I was listening to your one of your last podcasts, and you really talked about just this thing that you felt like you weren't happy, and you knew that you needed to do something that was something was leading you towards entrepreneurship, towards doing your own thing, right? And so now you're just basically doing similar stuff to what you talk about on the podcast, but you're helping people,
right?
Consulting, right?
Yeah. So accountability coaching is, and the way that that's different from therapy, which is what I was doing, is that I'm able to really hold people accountable. When you're doing therapy, you have to lead them and guide them to their own awareness. So I wanted to be more accessible to people who want to make some changes, maybe don't know how to, don't even know where to get started. And so just really step in, help them kind of understand what their barriers are, and then create a plan with them so that they can utilize their time better, because that's usually the number one thing, is not utilizing the time. And then just understanding like what's wrong with their mindset, what they need to change to become that better person. I feel like that we barely tap into our potential. And one of the things that kept coming to me was, so for example, all the people that I've worked with in the past, I've worked with the homeless population for about 6 years. I've worked in suicide prevention just prior to quitting. That was what I was doing. Worked with individuals with spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, children who've been abused. And every single one of them have this resilience that you would just, you just wonder, like, how in the world are you still alive with all the trauma and all the difficulties and the, unplanned things that happen. And I kept thinking about that. And it's like, we all have the ability to tap into that, that endurance and that resiliency, but we usually only do that when something really bad happens, when we have to, because we're living in a world and a society now where we're pretty comfortable. I mean, there's obviously people who aren't, who are struggling, but we don't have to be in that survival mode, to tap into that extra.
So how do you tap into that when you're not in that situation, when you're not in survival mode?
Right. So what I do, and what I think is important for everyone to do, is every day you need to be challenging yourself in some kind of way. Whether it's a physical challenge or a mental challenge, you have to be putting yourself in a position where you're going to be uncomfortable. If you don't do that, then you'll continue to be comfortable, and you'll continue to just go, day by day, and that's okay, but there's more there. You have way more resources than you're utilizing. So when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and it could be anything, I mean, for example, let's talk about if you are at work and you're told that you have to do a presentation, and you're not comfortable with that, so you like pass it on to someone else. Go ahead and do it. Like, do the uncomfortable things. Go and have that conversation with your boss that you've been wanting to have, you know, because maybe you're not getting the respect or the promotion that you feel like you deserve. Or have that uncomfortable conversation with the neighbor who's completely disrespecting your property, or you know, it's simple things like that. Other things you could do is physically challenge yourself. A lot of times people complain about the weather. You know, it's hot, so people are going to complain about it being hot. It's raining, so people are going to complain about being raining. You know, about it raining. Or it starts getting cold and windy, and so your first thing is that you're just complaining about whatever's happening. But instead of complaining about it, get out there and actually like push yourself in that weather. Like, go for a walk, go for a run. A couple of years ago, I started running purposely in the summertime in the late afternoon, just to see what it felt like, you know. And it sounds awful, you know, and sometimes it is, but the more you put yourself in those situations, the more capacity you're building inside of yourself to just, you know, tap into that those deeper resources that you didn't know you had because you never pushed yourself to that limit. You know, so it's mentally and physically.
So what is it about? Does it have to do with because you're accomplishing things, you're giving yourself wins, or is there something mentally like inside of you that just, you know, makes you better because you're uncomfortable?
I think it's both. I think whenever you do something that you didn't think you could do, then that just breeds like this curiosity, you know, of, oh, well, like, what else can I do, you know? And then of course it feels good, you know. And then there's also times where maybe you didn't accomplish what you wanted to, but that, if you are able to have a growth mindset, which is basically where you're taking barriers and looking at them as challenges, then the failure will actually turn into something that kind of breeds a fire underneath you, you know, to try again.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of people who watch podcasts like this, listen to this kind of podcast, and you know, we're all about like entrepreneurship and leadership and stuff, and these people are in a situation similar to what you were in, where it's like they have this job, maybe it's, you know, they've been there in this job for a long time, or there's things like the red tape and stuff that's making them unhappy, like, and there's this fear of leaving that job that you don't like, but it's secure. And you have this idea, you have something you want to do on your own. Like, walk us through what that was like for you mentally, realizing that you're not happy, you want to do something else, and then just taking the leap.
Okay. So this is a long ass walk.
Okay. All right.
Because, oh my God.
Casey, bring me the whiskey. Where's the whiskey? No, just kidding.
Man, I know that fear. I had it for so long. It was, and I don't even know, I'm not exactly sure what I was even afraid of. Maybe it was a combination of a lot of different things. Like, what if I fail? I know a big part of it, because like you said, I was in a very secure job. So part of it, I mean, I've got 2 kids, 2 girls, 9 and 11, and a husband. And part of it was like, well, I don't want to put them in a situation where we could be very uncomfortable as a family, just because I want to see if this works out, you know? So I had to kind of get over or figure out what to do with those feelings. It really took a couple of years. So I was in a job that was extremely difficult. The job I had at the VA for 6 years, it was the most difficult job I've ever had. And it was mostly because of difficulties with leadership and just the program that we were working in was a high priority program with very low support. And so you could imagine the stress that comes along with wanting to have all this productivity, but then like never providing any kind of support for that. Yeah. So it was just a constant like beating down of the soul, really. And so that is when I knew like I cannot be stuck like this again. So I did end up getting out of that into suicide prevention. And I always joke like I had to take a break, so I went to suicide prevention. But the reason I went to that program is because the woman that was over that program, and she actually just retired a couple weeks before I left, was amazing. And I knew that if I got under her, then I would be able to start breathing and figuring out what my next steps were going to be. Yeah. And that's when at first I had to recover from the incredible burnout. And doing that while doing suicide prevention took a while. Yeah. And then I started planning. Once I moved out of that position, Jake and I made the decision to sell our home. It was a really nice home, modern home. And we sold it because we wanted to get something that wasn't going to demand such a mortgage. Because if I ever got into a position where I needed to leave, then that wouldn't be, be a piece that was keeping us stuck there. So there's many things that we did together. And
so those were things done with this in mind.
Yes. The whole time, all the steps, the past 2 years, all the things that I've been doing were leading up to me knowing that I wanted to go out on my own, but I didn't know exactly what the plan was. I just knew that I needed to make one. So we did that and started saving a lot of money because now we live in this little farmhouse, old, that we had to redo the whole thing. But we're able to save a lot more money. And so, we're doing that. And then, I start talking to this guy that I told you about, Scott from Becoming Ultra. Him and his wife are both entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to have a mentorship of some sort, like, cause I don't know anything about this, I'm like, I don't even know what questions to ask. So they really helped me to, figure out kind of what to even think about, what to do. I built a website, which took me forever. And it was like, I'm sure Casey knows how to do all this stuff, but a social worker is not a tech savvy person. But I felt really proud of myself. So these are like the little wins, the little things that kept me going, like, okay, now I've done this. So what else do I need to do? And I was gaining some momentum, but still had a lot of fear. And then COVID happened. And at that point in time, I was like, man, I'm so grateful that I have this job. I don't have to worry like so many other people do. And I couldn't tell you exactly why now. But we were talking a little bit before about faith. And I always try to stay focused on my faith and where I'm supposed to be placed in this world, like I want to be where I need to be. And so I kind of started feeling this pull, like now is the time, and so I started making more plans to have a part-time job. And once I knew it was time, like I knew when I said out loud, like, I'm going to do this, like there was going to be no stopping me. So that was also kind of scaring me because that's just my personality. Like when it may take me a while to process things, but if I say I'm in, I'm all in. And so
just saying it to yourself.
Just saying it out loud. and saying that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Because I can say forever, like, oh, yeah, that's something I want to
Yeah.
do. You know, that would be
Yeah.
great. But I knew in my heart that I really wanted to. And so I just had to build up that
Yeah.
courage. And
Yeah.
so throughout the last couple of years, I've been taking little steps here and there to build this. You know, I started a women's running group just to try to, you know, I'm really invested in women empowerment, and that's a big piece of what I want to continue to do. So just the little things that I've been trying to build up, and so one, like the icing on the cake, really was that song that my brother wrote.
Yeah.
It's called Oblivious, and it's an extremely depressing song.
Yeah.
Okay. I was talking to him and my parents. We were all over there, and I was like, yeah, that song is depressing.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? I'm like, and me and my brother are like, you need to listen to that song. Because there ain't nothing good about.
Yeah.
It's basically just talking about how you kind of go, you know, you first start out thinking that like the world is all innocent, but then, you know, he's a police officer and I'm a social worker, and then you kind of go and figure out what the world is really about. You know, he's seeing some of the most horrific things that a person can see, and I'm working with people who are talking about some of the most traumatic things that you can even wonder how people get through.
Yeah.
And so it takes you to a really dark place.
Yeah.
And so that's what the song is about. And it's kind of like you become oblivious to how you deal with that. And sometimes it's not good.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take that step and do what I knew I needed to do, you know? And so that's how that all kind of progressed.
So what we're going to do is put a link in the show notes to this, to your episode where you played that.
Oh, okay.
So
perfect.
I listened. That's what we actually listened to that the other day. We listened to that whole episode and then the song at the end. So those of you that are listening right now or watching on YouTube as well, we'll put a link down below so you can hear the song, because I know we're talking about Shanna right now, but Sean is like one of my favorite people as well, and he's a wonderful musician. Has a great voice, and like I was really emotionally into that song when I listened to that. So and
it just the thing I love about songwriters and my brother is just that when you put that out there, I mean that's pretty vulnerable, you know, to put that out there, you know, to express that to the world, and so many people can connect to that, you know, and I definitely did. When I heard it, I was like bawling my eyes out, and I texted him. I was like, oh my God, I felt every word of that song. But it was just one more thing like that made me believe that this is our one life. Are we going to continue to try and survive this awful, you know, system and just do it because we're getting the paycheck? I mean, of course I loved working with the veterans that I work with, but I also want to do this in my own way and see, you know, if I can. I mean, I know I can make a difference, but I want to do it in my own way, you know, on my own terms.
So now it's been, how long has it been since you left your other job?
It's been 3 weekdays.
3 days. Well, so like
last Friday was my last day.
Like one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on like as quickly as possible,
right,
is because really one of the purposes of this podcast is for me to learn from other people who are entrepreneurs and leaders and just self-improvement and that kind of stuff, and for the people that are watching and listening to kind of go on that journey with me, right? And so there's a lot of stuff that we can get from people who have been entrepreneurs for years and years and done all these great things, but there's a lot of people watching right now who maybe they want to be an entrepreneur or they want to do something different, but they don't see somebody like them doing it, right? And so right now there's somebody watching right now who had that comfort of their job, the security, but they're just not happy, and they just don't understand how to go.
Right.
How this happens. So I think it's key for people to see somebody right now doing it.
Right.
Like in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest takeaway from the first 3 days? Like what's it's been like up here?
So there has been like some, I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. There's been moments where I'm like panicked, you know, or I'm like, shit, did I, you know, but then I have to like remind myself I have a purpose.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm good at what I do. Like, don't let yourself talk yourself into, you know, into that. Don't let that demon come in and tell you that you're not going to be able to figure it out. Because I think the main thing is that if you do have a purpose and you have a great work ethic, which I do, then you just have to keep moving. You know, you just have to keep figuring it out. There's not going to be like there's not going to be like an equation that's going to make everything work. You know, it's going to be at least from what I can imagine, because of course, like I said, this is 3 days in. What I imagine is that there's going to be a constant flow that I'm going to have to constantly adjust to, and then always remember like what my purpose is. You know.
So we had a guest on a while back, Chris, and he really talked about, you know, purpose and being in tune with your purpose and being, you know, that's for me something that gets me up every day, right? So you know, I can tell you today, you know, we knew it was gonna be hot, so we had to brew beer, and I didn't want to be in that hot brewery brewing beer at, you know, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the, you know, afternoon. It was real hot, and so we had to get up super early. Like I said earlier, I left the house at like 6:30. You know, and it's just like, and the day before was no picnic, you know? And so it's like, how do I, you know, get myself, I can tell you right now, when I had a job, I wasn't getting up at, you know, leaving the house at 6:30.
Right.
You know, I wasn't happy about leaving the house at 6:30, but I really left the house this morning tired, but excited to go to work.
Yeah.
Because I believe so much in the purpose of what we're trying to do with it's so much more than just making beer, you know? And I think for you, definitely what I'm hearing a lot come out of your mouth is about impact and impacting lives of other people. And there's some connection with that kind of purpose that we had a conversation earlier too about this higher being, about their, you know, knowing and surrendering to this higher purpose and higher being in this world. And to me, like, how do you get up and go to work if you don't have a real purpose? Right. You know? And so when you talk about the fear of leaving your other job, like, to me, like, what I think you'll notice, you probably already have, what I think you're going to find out is, like, then you're going to have a fear of ever having to go back to that. Right. Like, the fear to me is like having not ever done it. Right. You know? And your podcast, you know, when you said, and we had talked about this a little bit the other day, but like when you said one life, you know, like that's something I've been real big about for like the past year, you know, is one life, you know. So I brought the coin that I was telling you about. Oh, wow. So that's the Memento Mori coin that basically is a reminder. I keep it in my pocket every day when I'm at work and, man, this sucks, you know, or I don't get a sale, you know, when I'm out selling beer, you know, and I start getting down, like I'll reach in to get my keys out of my pocket and there's that coin, you know, and it reminds me you got one life. That's it. Right. So don't waste it, you know, just move on to the next thing and let's go. Let's make, it has to work. This has to happen, you know. Right. But I really connected with your episode when you said that. Right. One life, you know. But
the coin says you could leave life right now.
Yep. And that's the thing, you know, you may not have tomorrow. Right. You know, you may not have it. So I'm going to be interested to see, and I hope you keep documenting on your podcast, like what's going through your head you know, as you're going through this process, you know. So, what's your biggest fear right now about the future of this new business? Like, what are the things maybe in the nuts and bolts of the business that you fear the most? Because I know we have the virus going on right now, and so that's probably a little bit challenging for somebody to start a business in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
You know,
I know what's really interesting is that a lot of people kept saying that. Like, once I finally said, this is what I'm going to do. And then I was like, I probably should have thought of that more, but I can't, like, this is the time, you know, and I kept hearing that in my head, like, now is the time. So what I'm really thinking is that I have something to offer that a lot of people need right now. There is so much stress. There's so much distress. You know, there is so much going on in our world right now, that I want to be like, if you're gonna be here, you know, and you have something to offer that will help people. I mean, that's what I want to do. You know, so my biggest fear, I guess, is just not knowing what to do. You know, like not knowing. Like how to market or how to get things out, you know, but I mean, that's just all stuff I'm going to figure out. I mean, that's another reason why I'm so glad for this opportunity for you to even have me here, because I'm not like a typical person that you would have on the podcast, but I want to take all the opportunities, and I want to be able to, I'm not a naturally outgoing person. And that's one of the things that my husband, Jake, is telling me. He's like, one of your biggest battles is going to be like putting yourself out there. Because also as a social worker and as a therapist, like my main focus has been on other people always. Never did I ever talk about myself. You know, there was never a reason to. It was always on, you know, focused on other people and doing for them and creating opportunities for them. But I have to use those same skills for myself right now, you know, to at least try to get things going. You're
putting yourself in that uncomfortable position.
Yes, definitely.
How important has it been to have the support of your family? So, I mean, obviously, if your husband was down with selling the house and creating basically a whole different lifestyle, different way of living, right? So what, you know, how important was that for your like confidence of like, man, I must be doing the right thing if he believes in me this much?
Yeah, he has been amazing through all of this. He's been, I mean, we've been together for almost 20 years now, so he's seen the real bad, dark times, and he understands how important it is for me to do this. And I mean, when I like put myself in his shoes, I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like, how can you just let someone quit that kind of a job, you know? So I'm very grateful to have him and to have his support. And he's always, I mean, he has questions, and I have to catch myself because they're great questions, you know, like, well, what if you don't get anyone, you know, to call, or, you know, like, what's the plan then? Which are really good questions, you know, and I have to catch myself to not be defensive, because I know that like we're in this together, you know, but he's keeping me on that line of like just making sure that I'm looking at all sides of it, and just understanding that like you do have to make money, you know, this isn't like a, you know, I'm not doing this, it's not like a charity, a charity thing. I'm doing this for a living now. But he has definitely been super supportive. And then my parents and my brother and sister-in-law, they've been amazing. Tessa, who we also should mention, is my brother's wife. She's like a sister to me. You know, I've known her since I was 12. And she's been one of my biggest just motivators on pursuing my passion. And my brother, he also was like, hey, you're gonna be everything's gonna be fine. You know, all these stresses and worries that we have, I mean, I'm stressed and worried anyways, so how about we do it, you know, on our own time and create these stresses and worries that we can actually do something
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
because this system over here can't do anything
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That's going to be that way forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's definitely been great to have them backing me up.
Yeah.
It's given me that confidence to finally take the step.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's see if you can help us out and some
Okay.
of our listeners with how we can become ultra.
Okay.
Right. All right. So any kind of let's start in the beginning. Morning routines. What are your mornings like?
So I don't have an actual morning routine. I was looking at that.
Are you an early riser?
I am.
Okay.
I am an early riser, but I have different things that I do on different days.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a routine. Like, I will always run or exercise.
Yep.
That's very important to me for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That's just ingrained in me, and I don't if I don't have it, then I become just a real frustrated person.
I think you've been that way.
My whole life.
Yeah, forever since I've known you. So,
Yeah.
what do you tell somebody who's not in that mode
Right.
now?
Mm-hmm.
So how do they get to where becomes ingrained in their daily life, or just kind of who they are?
Right. I really like to talk about it as movement.
Uh-huh.
Like, you don't have to run like I run, and you don't have to do like hardcore workouts, but you do need to move your body.
Yeah.
Moving the body, there's so much. I mean, there's been so much research and science behind it that does prove that it has a mental health benefit.
Yeah.
So when it's really hard to get out of bed, and this is some of the stuff that I talk to, some of my clients about. It's like, okay, well, just get your feet on the ground first. If you can get your feet on the ground, then you just start taking one step at a time.
Yep.
Okay. And don't overwhelm yourself with these goals that are not attainable. Just start walking first or stretching. It doesn't have to be anything explosive, but you do need to move your body. And I do understand that there's times when it's hard, for whatever reason. You could have some kind of physical problems or illnesses or mental health, but you can always put your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
If you're capable, then that's the first step.
Okay. So you always exercise. What's next?
So this is what I do. I am really big on having a to-do list.
Yeah.
And I don't just think about it like willy-nilly. I have a focus and intention for my day.
Yeah.
Regardless of where I'm at, whether I was, at the VA or now, like, I know what I'm going to do. Of course you have to be flexible with that, but I have a list and I also prioritize it. So, there's things that I absolutely know I have to get done during the day. And then there's things that I'll put on the list that if I have extra time, then I want to do those too. So I make my list, and I love checking them off, or highlighting them. I use this highlighter. So whenever I have all these highlights on, it makes me feel so good. So
sounds like my fiance Bobby. She loves that stuff. And if you could throw in a spreadsheet or a graph or something in there somewhere, that would make it even better.
Yeah, I like starting the day off knowing what's going to be important to get taken care of, and then doing it. It's important for you to have intention behind your day.
Yeah. Meditation, is that something?
So that's something I've started. I'm actually taking a class right now on mindfulness stress reduction, and I love the mindfulness practice.
Yep.
I'm not huge on long meditations though. That's something I need to get a little bit better at. But the one thing that I've really gotten out of this course that I do teach other people is just that 10 to 15 minute breathing meditation. And the reason why that is so important is because most of us we have this dialogue in our head constantly. And sometimes your dialogue is so focused on what's happening next, what do I need to do, what did I forget, like where, stressing out about things that maybe you're creating these huge scenarios in your head about like what could possibly happen, or your mind is in the past where you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I wish I would have made a better decision, or I should have never said that, or man, if we would have just done this or that or the other. And so those dialogues create a lot of depression and anxiety, which is why a lot of people suffer from that. Yeah. So the mindfulness practice, what you're doing when you're focusing on your breath is you're not trying to get your mind to do a certain thing. You're just acknowledging the thoughts that come into your mind. You're acknowledging them and you're pushing them aside and focusing back on the breath. And then once you or while you're doing that, you're kind of taking an inventory of what kind of thoughts you're having, so that you can better understand where you're at. And the main thing is that you're not using any kind of judgment, because we also have a lot of judgments on ourselves, like, dang, that was stupid. I'm an idiot or whatever. But with the practice, you're acknowledging the thought with no judgment, pushing it to the side, going back to the breath. And that allows you to be right here and now, in the present, where we need to be. We waste so much time or lose so much time when we are too far ahead in the future or too far in the past, and we don't even recognize what's in front of us. So that's the one piece that I would say is most beneficial for me and would be for other people too.
Focus on the here and now.
Yes. And just, once you understand better, like where your mind's at, then you'll be able to you'll be able to manage that better. But you have to do the practice to get there, and 10 or 15 minutes a day is not that much time. I mean, you probably spend 2 hours on your social media, if you're on that. I mean, if you really look at it, so you can take 10 or 15 minutes for you to put you in a better place so you can be present with your spouse, present with your family, because it's cultivating this awareness, the more that you do it. So it's almost like, so I'll use like a running, I don't know, this may not make sense for some people, but hopefully it will. Like if you were ever in track, and you run, you're running your sprints, and it's really hard, but you're running your sprints, and you're doing this hard exercise, and then you go out and you're running like a longer distance, and each time you run your sprints, it's just making you a little bit faster each time. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of the same thing. You are doing this hard thing, and it's creating this capacity inside of you to be more aware, but you're not really recognizing it so much. It's not like such a huge difference that it's, life-changing. It's not like we're all turning into, superstar runners, but we are becoming way more aware of what's going on right now.
It's kind of like building new muscle, sort of.
Yeah, creating a foundation for you to be just more aware of what's happening.
So dealing with your own just wellness and mindset and stuff, what are some challenges that you've come across during the COVID situation? Because I feel like that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough.
Right.
Everybody's worried about the virus, which we should be.
Right.
Everybody's worried about the economy, which we should be. But not a lot of people are worrying about how both of those things are affecting people mentally. So even for somebody like yourself who has made a life practice out of trying to be where you need to be mentally, like what are the things that even you have struggled with during this time?
So in the beginning, I had a serious problem with anxiety, which I never have a problem with anxiety. That really and truly is not something that I've ever dealt with until then, because I was working in the hospital, and like every 5 minutes there's so many people reacting on all the new things that we have to do, or the new guidelines. And so it was a real chaotic time
Yeah.
in the beginning, like in March and April. And so I had to really step back and try to focus on not reacting, you know, and almost sometimes I would just like put myself in an office and just purposely not be around people because
Yeah.
I didn't want to get that stimulation that,
Yeah.
you know, because I knew that things were going to constantly be changing. So that in the beginning was kind of what I was dealing with. And one of the things so when I talk about like doing things that were uncomfortable, our boss, since we were in suicide prevention, she wanted us to provide like seminars for the staff at the VA to help them deal with their
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like I'm barely making it here,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like how am I supposed to help everyone else? But it actually was a great thing. It was very uncomfortable at first because I felt raw myself.
Yeah.
But then it helped me focus on, what I did was I focused on the grief of COVID-19 and how we can all kind of better understand all the things that we're
Yeah.
grieving right now. And so it put me in just kind of in a better mindset
Yeah.
of like, okay, you know, if we just take the time to consider what's going on and help other people, then it does actually make you feel better about what's going on. I mean, it's a difficult time.
Yeah.
You know, it has brought on a lot of different emotions. And that is one thing. I'm glad you pointed that out because that was the first thing I thought about was the devastation with all the mental health issues that were going to come about.
Yeah.
And it has. I mean, there has been a huge increase on people using the crisis line, a huge increase on suicide attempts. And it's all because, you know, people don't have a ground to stand on. You know, everything is so chaotic and there's all this uncertainty. But I think the most important thing right now is to just be here, you know, and listen and just have compassion for each other because everyone's experiencing something different.
Yeah.
You know, even like in other states, it's way worse than it is here. You know, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation in another state.
Yeah. Key word for me lately has been empathy. Like I'm really just trying to focus on, because I can be stubborn and like stuck in my ways, right? And so lately I've just really been trying to focus on the fact that exactly what you said, that other people are living sometimes a completely different life than I'm living.
Right.
And so their experiences are different than mine. And then just the way naturally they're going to deal with some of these experiences are different than mine. And so I'm really trying to focus on, you know, having more empathy for somebody, for what they're going through.
Right.
You know, sometimes it's real hard for me to comprehend or understand when somebody is really worked up or upset over something to me that's like not very important.
Right.
You know, but now I'm starting to kind of really understand that one is they don't always have a choice to be upset about it or not. Like some people just anxiety, you know, that have that anxious feeling during this time. A lot of it had to do with starting a business. You know, I've dealt with some anxiety that I've never dealt with before. I've never had a panic attack until I started my own business, you know? And so, I mean, there's been times where Bobby's like literally holding me while I'm like in tears, you know, and just things I never thought I would experience. And that experience right there wakes me up and shows me that, man, you thought you were all together and you were judging these people who weren't, you know. And so now that's helped me to really have more empathy for people going through that kind of stuff, you know. So, I mean, share with like a tip for people right now, because that's the thing. Anxiety, I know, is through the roof for so many people. You said, you know, we talked about COVID, and then we have the protests, and there's all this political unrest, and now we're heading towards an election that's like could be maybe one of the biggest elections in a long time. It's definitely one of the most like talked about. elections, and there's just all kinds of uncertainty. We don't know when there's going to be a vaccine.
Right.
We don't know when people's businesses are going to be back to normal. So what are what's a tip or two that you can give people who are going to bed feeling that anxiety every night?
So the best thing to do with anxiety is to breathe.
Yeah.
Breathing, and I actually just posted something on this today. Your breathing is like the center of your being. Like it controls everything. And if you can do a breathing practice every day, several times a day if you need to, then that's going to help to slow your body down. It's going to, the oxygen is going to start to relax your muscles. And it's good to do it. It's good to do it when you're having the attack, but it's better to do it if you make a practice out of it, because that will then just make you
like a habit, a daily thing.
Daily thing. Yeah. And one of the, there's so many different breathing techniques, but one that's really good, it's called box breathing. And so so you're breathing in for 4 seconds, breathe in, and then you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds, and hold it for 4 seconds. And if you can't do 4 seconds, of course you can do less than that, but it's the box. So 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, hold for 4. And if you do that for about 5 cycles, then that's going to just significantly reduce your stress. It's going to get you to this calmer place. And it also helps with sleep, because you're relaxing your body.
Doesn't it also help with like pH levels and like becoming more alkaline in your body with from?
It does, yeah. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof?
Yes. I was about to ask you that same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, me and my family started this Wim Hof 30 breaths thing. Yep. So we all did it together one night, and then the next night my girls were like, "Nah, we're out."
Yeah, I love Wim Hof.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and it's crazy.
The Iceman.
Yes. Yeah. There is so much that you can do with breathing. Yeah. Just by incorporating it into your daily practice, that's going to be one thing that helps with your anxiety. Another thing with all the stuff that you're talking about, obviously, if your mental health is to the point to where you are thinking of suicide, or you're so hopeless you don't know what to do next, then ask for help. And coming from suicide prevention, you just wouldn't believe how many people go so far without asking for help. So if you need to see a therapist or someone, don't feel like that, like you're the only one, because we are all in this together. I'm telling you, there is not one person that's not being affected by this. And if they are, then they're in complete denial. So also, I think it's important that we, like I said, like you said, we express empathy and compassion, not just to other people, but to ourselves. Like, don't be so hard on yourself.
Forgiveness.
If you're having a struggle, or if you're having a panic attack, don't think that that there's something wrong with you. I mean, it's totally normal whenever you're going through so many different things to have that, to have those reactions. So have compassion for yourself too. And that's something I have to remind myself of as well, because I have a pretty high standard that I always want to get to. And sometimes I feel like, like I'm just not good enough if I don't get to that standard, which is kind of like a silly thing. But I mean, it's important to remember, like, as long as we're trying our hardest and we're doing the best that we can, we're reaching out, then sometimes that's all you can do. Yeah.
So even somebody who's an expert in this has those feelings and thoughts and stuff.
Of course. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my podcast, because I didn't want to be fake, like I go through bouts of depression. I mean, it's hard not to whenever you are having secondary trauma from the people that you're working with, or you're, like I said, it gets real heavy. But I would like for people, like, I'd like to change the narrative that just because you are struggling doesn't mean that you're not amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like, just because you are good at hiding it, you know, doesn't mean that it's not in there, you know, that that the struggle's not in there. So I think that we all kind of try to look or be a certain way. But it's important to show that, like, hey, like, we all have problems. Like, every one of us is working on something right now, and that's okay, you know. And that's what being ultra is about. You know, it's not about being like this perfect being. It's about being real with who you are and striving to be better. You know.
So what's the future of your business look like?
Well, this is what I'll tell you I want it to look like is I'll be doing the accountability coaching. I also am going to be doing courses on mindfulness and mindset, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. And I'm hoping to launch that next month via Zoom, because I know that there's just a lot of things that that I'm not going to be able to do face-to-face. But you can still get, you know, just as much out of it by doing a Zoom, because that's actually how I'm doing my class right now too. And it's been really interesting, you know. So I'll be doing that. So you can look on beultraliving.com to see when those courses are going to be offered. And then I also have a women's group, a ladies group that I have created a membership for. And this is, it's not like a fitness group. Okay. So I want to be clear that I'm not like a fitness instructor. My goal is to empower women to be their best and to realize that, you know, how amazing they are. You know, I've in being with this group this whole past year, the one thing that I've noticed the most is that they are just not giving themselves enough credit. I mean, they are running businesses, you know, they're doctors, they have children that they're taking to all the different things, you know, all the different extracurricular activities. They are, you know, managing a marriage, you know, of course they, you know, they have people, and there's so many different things they're doing. And on top of that, they're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to take care of themselves, you know, and then they're saying, God, you know, I'm just not good enough. You know, I'm like, yes, you are, you know? So working on using fitness as a way to, you know, to just feel better, trying to really change the narrative of eating healthy food for strength and health, not eating healthy food to lose weight. That drives me bonkers, because it's just it's a way that our society has made us as women feel like your value is in what you're, you know, how much you weigh. And that is super important for me because I have 2 daughters, and I want them to focus on understanding that their value is in who they are and what they do, and not what they look like. So that's just that's something else that I'll be working on. I've got a women's retreat that I'm doing in October.
Oh, cool.
So I've already got some ladies signed up for that. So sign up quick. It's going to be really awesome. We have a nutritionist coming to talk about just what I was just talking about, for eating for health and strength. We're going to be doing a lot of mindfulness stuff, some yoga, and I've got some really cool activities planned to really challenge them and really add some discomfort and help them to have a new relationship with pain. It's not going to be, you know, it'll be something that everyone can do. But that's one of the things that we talk about in the women's group, because a lot of times, like, we go on Thursday mornings to run up and down stairs at a stadium. And I always tell them we're creating a new relationship with pain today. You know, it's not that we can't do it. You know, we just have to think about it differently. So that's kind of what's going on.
Almost separate yourself from it.
Right. Yeah. As an ultra runner, you learn all these
Yeah.
different ways to compartmentalize
So we
it.
take a big backpacking trip every year in Montana, and we'll disappear into the mountains for like a week. You know?
Oh man, that's awesome.
I've finally kind of learned, like, usually the beginning and the end kind of really sucks, right? Like the beginning when we first take off, it's like, oh cool, here we go, but it's real quick. It's like, oh man. And then the last day after you're out there for a week and then hiking back, like, oh my gosh, dude, you're just tired and dirty and sore and all that stuff. But I've kind of learned this weird little trick where it's like, and it's hard for me to explain, but it's almost like I'm watching myself from above, you know, and it's like I barely know my legs are even going, you know. It's just kind of, I've separated myself from my physical being, you know. Mentally I'm just kind of in this other place, you know. I'm just kind of watching myself go, you know.
That's so cool.
It's a
when
weird
you can
little
get
separation
to that
thing. Yeah. So
I bet that trip though, when you come back, I bet you appreciate things so much more, you know. Whenever you go out and just kind of are off the grid doing, you know, having none of the comforts of what we have in our normal day life.
Well, like, I get a lot of stuff from it that, like you talked about earlier, selling your house and then moving to a different house. And what I got from what you were talking about was almost a little bit more of a minimalist lifestyle so that you can not worry about losing a job or whatever, right?
Right.
And so, like, it is like when I'm out there and I'm without some of the things that I have in my life that I feel like I have to have, you know, like your cell phone and all these cable TV or whatever. There's all these things that are tugging on you all the time that you don't really need, you know. And so what I get from it is it does help me appreciate things more, but it also just really makes me wake up to the fact of, like, I need water and breathing and warmth, you know, and some food. That's really all you need, you know, the simple things in life that kind of get you going. So okay, so we're almost out of time. One of the things I just want to say, so since I think you're because of what you do and what you're into, when it comes to entrepreneurship, like, you're probably more suited to actually see this through and be successful at it than a lot of people would be, just because you're not going to give up. Right. You know, there's no give up in you. But that would be like, that's one thing I'm just going to tell you from my experience. There's been lots of times where none of this happened almost, you know, and about the time that we think we're giving up, you know, or we think it's over, it's like, hang on for that next day. Just keep the business alive for one more day and see what happens, you know. And so
that's a good tip.
I think you're just going to be super successful because I know you'll never give up on that kind of stuff. So and then your purpose, being in on your purpose. So I can't wait to see. I think we need to set a calendar thing for a year from now.
Yeah,
and I'd love to have you on, and then we hear what's changed over the first year of your business and all that kind of stuff. So what we'll do is we're going to end on one last question. Okay. I always ask a similar question to this, but instead of taking the entrepreneurship twist on it, I want you to tell me, so this is your last day on earth, okay? And you've got one last chance to leave some wisdom behind on people. And somebody asks you, what's the one piece of advice you can give me to be ultra, to live that ultra life? What's the biggest piece of advice you're going to leave behind before you leave this planet?
So I truly believe that every single person has inside of them a strength that is just theirs, you know, something that was given to them, a purpose that they are on this earth for. And I truly believe that. I've seen it in everyone that I've worked with, you know, that they have something inside of them to share with the world. So what I would say is to not be afraid to live your purpose. You know, no matter what it is, you know, it's it's important because, like we've talked about, like this is our one life. If you don't do that, then you never know, you know, what you could have influenced, or, you know, what you could have done, or what kind of legacy you could have left behind.
Yeah.
You know, so just to not be afraid.
Well, that's good. That's good. All right. Tell everybody where we can find you on like social media, the podcast, all that.
Okay. On Facebook, it's Be Ultra Living. Same on Instagram, it's b.ultra.living.
Okay.
And then the website is beultraliving.com. Tried to make it real easy.
So if somebody's looking for your services, go to the website.
Yes, the
best
website.
Best place to get
it's
in
got
touch.
everything on there.
Okay.
It's got all the details about the accountability coaching, what you could expect, what you know, what I will expect of you. And there's also information on the course that's going to be coming up in August. So keep an eye on that so that you can sign up online. And then the ladies membership is also on there. On every day, I'm providing something different that either has to do with fitness, with a mental challenge, with just some like today, Wednesday was about kind of cultivating this compassion inside of us, and Thursdays are focused on just trying to help each other out, because I'm wanting to create a community so that women can empower other women, you know, women empowering women. So there's something every day for you, and it kind of takes the guess out of what you need to do. Since I am always really busy and I've got a lot of stuff going on, I like to do things that have the most bang for their buck. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm giving all the ladies, so that we can really hone in on, you know, the things that we're wanting to get better at, but not have to invest a ton of time. You know, there's lots of ways that you can add things into what you're already doing.
Yeah, that's like a block for a lot of people, right?
Yes,
the time
it is.
thing.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And next time you're on, I think we'll have you maybe take us through some of these mindfulness practices,
That'd
maybe
be
some of
cool.
the breathing stuff. You know, maybe we can teach some of that to some of our viewers.
Yeah.
And stuff. So we'll wait till we have actually more viewers, so we can have a bigger impact on people. What do you think, Casey?
Well, you know, this one's a little bit close to my heart because, you know, speaking of, you know, the virus and things that have gone on, she kind of left her job and stuff like that. I was the same way. I've had a side hustle for the last couple of years, and because of the situation that we're in right now, I've had to make this my main hustle.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always had a toe in the water, but never jumped in.
Yeah.
I was in a situation where I had to. And I think, you know, like what she was saying, get started. Put your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, that's the first step.
Yep.
You know, and that, like I said, is close to my heart, and I think she's nailing it.
Yeah.
You know?
100% of the people who never took step one never got to step two.
That's
for
100%
sure.
it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And guys, thanks for watching and listening. Make sure you hit subscribe and like on YouTube. Also, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify. Is your podcast on all the usual?
Yes. Be Ultra podcast.
Okay, and they can find it on Apple and Spotify, all the usual stuff, right? Okay. All right, make sure you guys check that out, and I'll let Shanna give the end. What do we need to be doing? Be
you, be brave, and be ultra.
All right. Thanks, guys.